There's a lot of buzz around the MCU following Phase 4. Kevin Feige, it feels like, doesn't even know what he's going to do, but he knows he has to do something because nothing is really working right now. In the past, it's been exponential growth movie after movie for the MCU for the most part, and it's been replaced by gradual decline movie after movie. We're seeing things open up pretty decent, maybe even above expectations, but they just die almost immediately because nobody, for the most part, is satisfied with the MCU right now. Phase 4 was a complete bust. It turned off so many people to the MCU that customers are just weary about what they're actually going to get. And the word of mouth has not been good. Yes, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania started out pretty well, but it is absolutely bombed in the second and third week. We've got the Marvels on the horizon. It was recently delayed. And once we start looking into some of the rumors surrounding that delay, you can see Kevin Feige is a very, very desperate man. And really, he has no one to blame but himself. Kevin Feige is the one that went out of his way to go out there and hire as many writers, directors, and producers as possible that had no interest in ever telling a good superhero story. He went out and hired so many incompetent people to be in charge of these productions. You can't help but blame them for producing really bad movies, really bad TV shows, pretty much across the board, with the exception of the Spider-Man No Way Home film, which for the most part people were very satisfied with. These are the latest rumors we have concerning the Marvels, whose release date was recently pushed back for a second time, this time from summer to November of 2023, with the trades reporting the reason for the delay is to give the film more time for post-production. Various scoopers chimed in and said the real reason for the delay is because the Marvels tested so poorly with test screenings and audiences. This is a recurring theme for the MCU, not really for the MCU, just with Disney. It doesn't matter whether it's Marvel Studios, it doesn't matter if it's Lucasfilm, it doesn't matter if it's Pixar or just Disney in general. Almost everything that they make today tests poorly with audiences when they're getting ready for the post-production stuff and getting ready for the big rollout for the film to be released nationwide, really worldwide, because they do count on a worldwide movie-going audiences just to pay for the production cost of these films, which are very, very large at this point. Whatever trust customers had in the past with Disney, whether it be the Marvel Studios, Lucasfilm, or whatever, that trust has all been completely destroyed over the past 2 or 3 years. It's amazing just how bad Disney tests with people these days. Nobody trusts their brand anymore. And Kevin Feige is an example, a prime example of what's killing Disney just in general, and absolutely what's killing Marvel Studios and the MCU specifically today. He abandoned what made Marvel Studios, what made the MCU special, going out there and taking the very best superheroes in the world, going back into their history, finding the best stories that could be adapted to the big screen, finding the most creative writers and directors, putting these things all together and coming out with amazing movies like an Iron Man, like a Captain America Civil War, like the Avengers. All these things are absolutely dynamite. And he abandoned them all so he could make a point, so that he could go out there and hire the very worst, most incompetent people in the world that could never, ever, on their best day, deliver even a satisfying production when it comes to superheroes. That's just not how these people are wired. These are activists that they've replaced these really awesome professionals with. It's no surprise that every single time Disney, because it is a company-wide mandate, go and they start showing their wares early to potential customers, it's almost summarily rejected. We have some more information on the Marvels and what's going on right now. A new rumor offers further insight as to the delay and problems surrounding the Marvels, where it is claimed the reshoots involve fixing the third act and removing goofy scenes. The info comes from the Watcher_2099 Twitter account. Reshoots, I heard the third act is being reworked. There are also tonal issues with the film. They may trim some of the goofier stuff down. I am also not sure the third act incursion is happening anymore. The third act incursion is a reference to an earlier leak about the Marvels from last summer that is said to be a verified plot leak posted to Reddit. So the good news is, at least they're identifying major issues and trying to fix them. Now, almost every film does have reshoots, certainly anything of the scope of an MCU movie, where you're literally putting hundreds of millions of dollars just into the initial production. If there's something that's not working, you should go and reshoot it and see if you can get a better version of the film, because you're really depending on making at a minimum 500, 600, 800, maybe even $1 billion on these movies, just so you can have a decent enough profit to keep the venture going. So the good news is they are identifying problems and trying to fix them, But how did they get here to begin with? Sure, Captain Marvel made more money than it deserved to. Not that it's a terrible film. I'm never going to tell you that. I can't lie to you. But it is terribly boring, and it's not altogether that interesting. The hero herself is not that interesting. And Brie Larson has gone out of her way to spite Disney fans and really make the brand itself toxic. There was no way that a sequel to Captain Marvel was ever really going to be as successful as the first one. It was lightning in a bottle, and it was really, really lucky. They said Captain Marvel was integral to the Infinity War saga, like the finale in between Infinity War and Endgame, that you needed to watch Captain Marvel to know what was going to happen. It turned out that was a marketing ploy. It was pretty much a lie. So people went to that movie thinking they needed to see it. But everyone knows you don't need to see anything in Phase 4 or Phase 5 of the MCU. And they're certainly not going to go out there and support someone who has just been a complete asshole. So what did? They said, well, we need to beef it up with more stars. And then inexplicably, they go and they take a side character from Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, wasn't treated very importantly in the film. And now she's going to be one of the co-stars, even though she doesn't have a real place in the MCU, and is basically redundant having there because you have Captain Marvel. And then we're going to add Miss Marvel in here, even though that's the lowest watched MCU show in Disney Plus history. Like, the math doesn't add up here. What is Kevin Feige thinking? What is Victoria Alonso thinking? I know Victoria Alonso comes to these things with an agenda, but the bottom line is you have to make money. You have to make products that people actually want to see. Even if the Marvels was good, it was going to be a hard sell. And now we know it's not good. It's so bad. The audience testing was terrible. They're rumored to have to reshoot the entire third act because it doesn't work. And they're having to remove all the goofy shit from the movie, which is absolutely plaguing the MCU. That's the problem. That's the real problem. James Gunn, well, I don't know that he's the perfect fit for Superman. You know, I love Superman. He has a style of writing and directing that really works for him. And he can do goofy shit. And it's kind of endearing, and you kind of like it. Even a Joss Whedon, who I know a lot of people don't like right now, but he can throw those things into his productions, and for the most part, they work within the confines of the story because he makes it work within the story, and you learn something about the character. So now Kevin Feige has gone out of his way and hired these people who don't have any of the talent of the people that were doing this beforehand, and they're trying to imitate the successful jokes of the past and have ruined basically the entire franchise. Taika Waititi is bearable in bursts, and when he's doing his own stuff. I hated Thor Ragnarok, and I absolutely hated Thor Love and Thunder, even worse, because it was just there to service Taika Waititi in his ego and do nothing for Thor or the MCU itself. And that's where these things all start falling apart. The latest example being Ant-Man and the Wasp. Things are so bad, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania is now underperforming the first two Ant-Man movies. Yes, the one from 2015 performed better in the third week than the current one. In week 3, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania only brought in $12.471 million, less than Ant-Man and the Wasp's third weekend of $16.5 million in 2018, and even less than the first Ant-Man back in 2015 of $12.8 million. Even more alarming, all the talk surrounding Quantumania is about MODOK, not Jonathan Majors as Kang. Remember when the first Avengers movie came out and everyone was like, whoa, who was the ginormous purple guy? Like, what is going on here? What is that guy all about? What does this all mean? He's trying to get these Infinity Stones. This is all building to something. And that guy sounds really dangerous. Well, Kang is supposed to be that guy for the next two phases, leading up through Phase 5 and Phase 6, where we get 2 more Avengers movies. And nobody is talking about the character. And it's not because Jonathan Majors isn't a good actor. He's a very good actor. You know, I saw the character in Loki season 1, and he has a presence to him. He was interesting at the very least, but he was overwhelmed by the extreme goofy shit inside the MCU, specifically MODOK. Kevin Feige, I guarantee you, the first time he saw MODOK on the big screen when they were doing test screenings internally, he said, oh my God, that cannot be the MODOK we're going to put on screen. And they said, well, we've already spent $30 million bringing this to life. And it's like, well, maybe we need a tax write-off because we can't put that into the MCU. The old Kevin Feige never would have let that happen. The old Kevin Feige was a perfectionist. The old Kevin Feige was a planner. The old Kevin Feige protected the MCU itself and made sure that the characters in the universe all made sense and they were portrayed in a light that was commensurate for their status within the MCU. Now, was MODOK supposed to be an important character? Not really. He's not even important in comic books. But he's not supposed to be so overwhelmingly stupid looking that he actually distracts people from watching the movie and paying attention to the stuff that actually matters, like Kang within Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Really the big screen debut of your enormous villain that's driving the MCU forward to a new batch of Avengers films, which are already going to be hard sells. You're trying to replace Tony Stark Iron Man with Riri Williams Ironheart. I would say that did not work within the Black Panther sequel. You're trying to replace Steve Rogers Captain America with Falcon Cap. That is going to be very difficult to do. You basically have Thor, who's been redeemed 4 times now. It's the same story over and over. I guess you still have that character. People like him, but no one likes this version of the Hulk anymore. Who are the new heroes that are going to drive this? Black Panther is dead. Is Shuri going to lead the Avengers? Is fucking Captain Marvel, Brie Larson, going to lead this new Avengers movie? There are so many things already working against making a new Avengers movie seem important and impactful and giving people a reason to show up to the movie theater, that when you finally introduce your primetime villain, that next end boss, that he's a complete joke sitting next to MODOK, like, that's bad planning. And that's on Kevin Feige and his acolyte of dipshits over there within Marvel Studios. All of this could have been avoided. He had the blueprint. You go out there, you take the best characters with the best stories. You go out there and you find the stories that translate to the big screen. You find the most creative writers, the most visionary producers, and the best directors, and boom, you have a successful product that is almost guaranteed to bring in $1 billion every single time once everyone was on board the MCU. And they've just pissed it all away through phase 4. And I guarantee you, the Marvels, they'll be like, oh, wow, it made $100 million in opening weekend. And then it's going to drop like a rock, like every other Marvel movie that we've seen the past 2 or 3 years. Yes, the pandemic happened, but you know what? They delivered a good movie, Spider-Man No Way Home. And yes, there was a lot of fan service in that movie, and people showed up, and they showed up multiple times. Nobody is doing that anymore. There are major changes coming to the MCU. We've been talking about that. Kevin Feige is absolutely scared shitless. He wouldn't have done this 2 years ago, but now he has to do it because they know they have really messed this up, and they've got to get it back on track. If you have not seen this video, you need to see it right now. There's also a link in the video description.